right, topic 2. You can have George, Kind of Funny Kevin Bacon, or Scott.
George.
I'm putting a 1 here. George Barrett writes in and says, what does Zelda Wii U need to do to make you fall in love with the franchise again? Are you out of love with the Zelda franchise? Are you not in love with the Zelda franchise?
No, I'll always be in love with Zelda.
There you go. That's what I think too. I mean, like, Skyward Sword didn't do anything for me, but I loved Link to the Past or Link Between Worlds. You know what I mean? Like, I still love Zelda. I still cheer for Zelda. I still want Zelda to be great. I'm not like being a Zelda hater.
No, I want Zelda to be great too. I don't think Zelda's been great in a long time, with the exception of Skyward Sword, which I can't talk about because I didn't play. I just was not going to dig out my Wii from wherever. I already still have no idea where my Wii is.
You didn't miss.
It's somewhere. I heard that Skyward Sword was very meaty, but
that was almost like I don't know. Now we're getting off track because I put maybe 5 hours into it, and I was just like, I'm not committing another 35 to this. You know
I heard
what I mean?
it was
Like,
very
this
long.
is not what I want to do.
Yeah, just Zelda needs to not necessarily change, but do something different. The way, like, and what I mean by that is, it doesn't need to be what it's not. You know, it doesn't need to be what it's not, but it needs to do something just a little bit differently. And I think that that's getting back to what it actually is, and not try to like reinvent the wheel. The reason that people love like Ocarina of Time was because it was Zelda. That was like what you assumed a Zelda game was. It's dungeons, it's a little bit of exploration, finding heart pieces, and doing all those kinds of things. Now, all the other Zelda games after that have that, but they try to like shoehorn new features into these games or make them a little different to just make them different. I feel like you could just make Zelda's good enough structurally where you could just make minor differences, tweak the story, tweak the characters, tweak the dungeons, and kind of just release a prettier version of Zelda or a better version of Zelda over and over again. Now, that's a little hypocritical of me to say because the most different Zelda of all is Majora's Mask, and that's my favorite. But I think that stood out because it was still Zelda. It was still a recognizable Zelda game. Link was still recognizable as Link. There was no motion controls. There was no stylus controls. There was no 40-hour campaign. All those kinds of things. And I think that when you throw those kinds of things in, it becomes less interesting. You know, I feel like
it gets away from the core of what it is.
Yeah, I feel like Zelda's a super special series, and there wasn't any bad Zelda games in the core series, unless you count like CDI games and stuff like that. Until I think Twilight Princess. And I know people like that game, but I was like, this game kind of sucks. Like I feel like part of it is because I had to play it on the Wii, as I've explained many times before, and that motion control sucked, and I just felt like the game was I was just like, this is what is like, a goat's running down the hill, and I'm just trying to stop it from running, and I'm like, what the hell is going on in this game? Like, I just want to play. Like, why can't I just hold a controller? I don't even understand like why they made these certain decisions, which turned me completely off to Skyward Sword. And then Phantom Hourglass, I think was was it Phantom Hourglass that came out first? No, Spirit Tracks came out first.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. I didn't read anything about it. I was like, which is probably my fault. But I was so excited about it. I'm like, I don't want to know anything.
It's Zelda.
Yeah, I'm like, it's more Zelda on a handle. It's going to be great. I love, Link's Awakening. I love, I really love the Oracle games. Four Swords was awesome. So it's like, I picked that up and I played it for 5 minutes and I'm like, nope. Like, I'm not controlling this game with a stylus. Why would you ever think that I want to do that?
Terrible
Why
decision.
the fuck would you ever think that I wanted to do that?
Yeah.
And then they released another one, same thing. Don't even bother with it. So I feel like, and Minish Cap I think was a step in the wrong direction too for different. Minish Cap was just a weird game, but so for me, Zelda was just on the wane. Now I agree with you that A Link Between Worlds was pretty cool, but A Link Between Worlds is A Link to the Past. So like it was cool in that being in that world again and playing in that world again, but it didn't feel fresh or new at all.
Sure.
It felt like a really well done fan sequel, kind of. And I don't mean that as an insult saying like it's crude. It's not. It's just like that world is
You felt like you had been there before.
Yeah, that world is that version is all this sacred, and I don't need to see that again. There's nothing revolutionary in that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sorry. I've
What about the octopuses?
whatever. Oh, you have to find them to
Yeah.
what is it, like level up or something like that?
Yeah.
It's like I played that over Christmas break 2 years ago and I liked it a lot, but I was like, everyone was like making this fucking amazing. I'm like, it's just Link to the Past, dude. Like, it's the same world. I know what's around every fucking corner on this map. You know what I mean? Like, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. I appreciate it, and I appreciate that you're going back to the class, like one of the classic Zelda games, arguably for many people the best Zelda game, but it didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what do you want to see out of this Wii U version? Like this is topic one was open world. It looks like this is an open world Zelda, right? And they
Yeah, I
talk
think-
about it being Skyrim-y, where you look over that hill, you can get there, you can actually go to it.
I think that's what we're gonna get, and I think that's great. But again, it goes against like kind of the grain of what I was saying. Was I almost wish that it was just a more structural Zelda game. I think that this Zelda game is gonna be great. I think they're taking their time. It looks awesome.
It does look beautiful.
I have no doubt that they'll do their best to deliver. I think that the message has been delivered to them loud and clear from the fans, at least some vocal fans, that this is not, Skyward Sword was not what they wanted. And certainly the sales spoke to that. Skyward Sword sales, considering how many Wiis are out there, it was bad. It was sold like 4 million copies. It's like really not very good. For a very late Wii game where there are 100 Wiis out there, 4% of your audience bought that game.
Yeah.
For a Zelda game. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Considering half of the N64 owners bought Ocarina of Time. Literally half of them, So it's I think we're gonna get an open world game that's inspired by Western role playing games, but I think it'll keep the Zelda sensibilities, and I think that's fine. I want them to get more back to the roots of what made these games great, and the sense of awe, which I think a game like an open world game like Zelda could possibly do.
Do you worry about it bogging down though? That's my thing. It's like there'll be this. Like let's say, I mean, we don't know much about it. Like it's not like there's been.
No, we don't know
giant
anything about it,
hand-
really.
Right. So there's your main story quests, and then there's all these side quests, and like. You go into the Gorgon cave for the first time, and then rolling around they're eating rocks, being crazy motherfuckers like they are, and like you see it's this huge thing, and there's lava pits, and it's beautiful, and it's stunning HD, and then you're on this quest to save Zelda, and then one of them needs your help getting 3 pebbles for its baby, baby Goron or whatever, and you have to like, you know what I mean? Like, is that gonna water it down to an extent?
Yeah, maybe. I hope it doesn't take such literal inspiration from Western role-playing games, because there's a place for that kind of stuff, but Zelda's not it. See, the problem with Nintendo games generally, with the exception of maybe Metroid, is, and I'm not talking about every franchise, but the big franchises, that the protagonists are just
Dudes,
they're just
dudettes,
they're just there.
quiet people.
Like, so that's like the bigger thing now. That's not really a problem in a game like Fallout 3 or Skyrim, because you're kind of just playing as an avatar of
You're
a character
making
you
that
make.
character.
But Link is Link, so how does Link interact in a world like that where he's usually silent and you don't even really know him? Like, that's the funny thing, is that for all the Zelda games I've played, and I played them all with the exception of the ones we've mentioned, I have no idea who he is. And he's a different character in every one of these games, but you never really get to know him. He's
a
like
boy without a fairy, man.
He's like your avatar, kind of, but you don't even get to control what he looks like or choices he makes. So he's just going through the motions. So in a game like, in an open world game, which we assume that the Zelda Wii U game or maybe NX game will be, there needs to be more substance put to him, and that's actually what I'm most interested in, is if they actually decide to start writing this character.
No way.
No
way. Everybody would lose their fucking mind
I
if
think it'd
Link
be
comes
awesome.
out and talks and stuff. Yeah, I don't care. But
I
we're
think
not
it'd
the
be
guy. We're not the guy buying truckloads of amiibos and fucking camping out trying to find these.
No, we're
motherfuckers.
not. But I would say I'm just as passionate a Zelda fan as anyone out there. I wrote long ass FAQs for the first 3 Zelda games. I have beaten all of them up to that point or whatever. I buy them when they come out. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
I love Zelda. And my passion for that series cannot be questioned. And I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. So I don't think just because you're going out and buying amiibos or you're a current day Wii U fan or whatever means that you have a greater ownership over Zelda than someone who had been.
I'm
there
not
from the
saying
beginning.
you have a greater ownership. I'm not saying they should feel like they have a greater ownership. I'm thinking what Nintendo thinks.
Yeah, I think
Nintendo is hurting, right? They
Yeah.
need a success. This isn't the time to roll the dice and be like, well, fuck, we're changing everything you know about Link.
sure, but I think
Here
that
he is, and he's voiced by Scott Porter.
I think that
I like Scott Porter.
I don't think they have to voice him. I think that would probably actually be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I would like the idea of not using voice acting, but that's probably a weird idea too. I think that just if you're going to go in that direction of being inspired by Western games and making it a little more open and stuff, then maybe decide that you might want to write something for Link and make him a meaningful character and not just a dude with a sword and a.
So what does
tunic
that
on.
mean to you, writing for him? Then you're giving him dialogue choices, but no VO.
No choices. Just give him a story. Like give him a meaningful. Give him dialogue. Give him something worth saying, and give him a reason to be doing what he's doing. There's always a reason. There's a draw. In Link to the Past, he's woken up in the middle of the night, goes to the castle. Zelda's been, kidnapped or whatever. I mean, but like that's just fucking whatever. Like that's just the reason to set forth the adventure. It's not really a story. And
He has a driving force, but no real motivation.
yeah, exactly. So like, make him a character of substance. I mean, when I think about Wind Waker, which I think is a great game, that was really an attempt to do an open world kind of Zelda game too, and in a different kind of way, in a way that frustrated a lot of people actually. But
I love the sailing.
Yeah, I did too. But you could go in different directions to do different things and stuff like that in the game, and find there's a story, but you can go find a heart piece or whatever.
Sure.
So but even in that game, it's like again, it's just a different looking Link. That says nothing.
See, and that for me, that like I still love Zelda, always will. But and this is something I know you and I don't agree with because you were on a Zelda podcast, right? Talking about Majora's Mask, and I got to listen into a little bit of it. For me, was one of the things of I love Ocarina of Time. That's my favorite Zelda. But I love Majora's Mask just a little bit, less. If I'm ranking them, it's 1 and 2. And what I loved about Majora's Mask was the continuation of that character of Link. I miss there being a continuity to Link. Wind Waker I fucking loved at the time even. I know you hang out with revisionists. You can talk to any of the college friends. They know how much I loved it. But for me, it was a bummer to start that and then be like telling the legend of the hero of time, and then you're not that one, but you get his tune. It's like, and then that keeps going, and every Zelda is like this hard reset. And I'm like, just okay, can we just... Let's get a Zelda, let's get a Link, let's get a universe I like, and let me continue to do different things. And I feel like that's where they get hung up. And why the story never progresses is because every time they're like, well, we're doing this again, so it's got to be Link saving Zelda. There's got to be this dynamic of this princess thing or whatever, And that's where we keep getting fucking spinning our wheels because it's always like the next one, I feel like somebody's thinking we'll push it, but they never do. They just go in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cleverness to it in the sense that their resetting doesn't tie them to anything. Like there is a lore to Zelda and an order to the games that I think was done afterwards. Same thing with Castlevania. Like it started at a certain time, and then a bit later on, you can figure out that there's actually, Castlevania 3 takes place, before Castlevania and all that, But that's stuff that's like figured out later. Like you make your game first, and then you kind of like figure out if there's going to be a lore in a universe or whatever.
Sure.
By not making a continuous real universe, with the exception of with really a couple of exceptions, they're not tied to anything, which I think is clever and frees them up, especially with Majora's Mask being somewhat of a continuation of Link to the Past in a different world or whatever. Or I'm sorry, Ocarina of Time in a different world or whatever. Well, that game was made in like a year, so it's like not there like wasn't really. It's so funny that game ended up being so good because it was made in no time. Same thing with Mega Man 3. It's like, well, this game's awesome, and they made it in like no time. So yeah, I think that maybe now's the place where you start with what you're talking about. Make a game that's more meaningful. Zelda, unlike Metroid, I think Metroid is largely irrelevant to a large audience. We've talked about that in the past. The games do not sell, and we love them, or I do anyway, but no one really cares about those games. And those games are story driven, and there is a continuity between them, and an order that the games take place in. And Samus is the same character and all these kinds of things. And she does have feelings and emotions, and you do hear from her on occasion.
I saw the baby Metroid, but I didn't know.
But that doesn't resonate with a big audience, and Nintendo's probably looking at that, being like, well, our serialized game is not that big.
Yeah, but this is damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because you're sitting here saying you don't really know Link, and I think it's because they re-fucking boot Link every time. You know what I mean? Now, granted, they need to hit Link out of the park. Maybe, they hit him out of the park on Wii U. Everybody's like, we love this version of Link, and then they're like, all right, fine, we'll make a sequel to this. That would make sense, but I don't even feel like they're giving it a shot.
Yeah, but I don't understand that argument in the sense that if it was the same Link in all the Zelda games, what?
But it's not the same Link in all the Zelda games. I'm talking about just one-to-one. To tell me something different, to do something different.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying like even if there was just complete continuity in the Zelda games, it doesn't matter because he doesn't fucking say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just the same story over and over again. And to me, like my favorite Zelda games are Zelda 2 and Majora's Mask because they are really different games. Right. But they retain the spirit of Zelda. I felt like even Zelda 2, and I don't know if a lot of our younger viewers have played it, Zelda 2 is a radically different game. Zelda 2 is the most different Zelda game in existence. Again, unless you're talking about like the really obscure Zelda games that you've never played, that you have no access to, and people talk about on forums like they play them, but they haven't. That game is radically different, but it felt like a Zelda game. It had the spirit of a Zelda game, even though the original Link, original Zelda, which is an open world game. Miraculously enough, it's like very full circle. That is an open world game. And you can go in different orders and do all these kinds of things. I fucking love that game too. That game's special. These games that tried to do different things still felt Zelda-like. And so by the time you got to the games that I felt like Twilight Princess didn't feel like a Zelda game.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like just some boring fucking gray monotonous.
You're Wolfman.
It's like, what is this game? And then with Skyward Sword, I look at it and I read about it and I watch the videos and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell this is. Yeah. I appreciate that you're trying to do something different. it just doesn't appeal to me. And again, being turned off by the DS games, I think turned me off to Zelda generally. But I would love Zelda to have a return to form because some of the best games of all time come from that series, and you can't really question it. So, take your time, make the game, make the game that they want to make. I know they are. I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories about why they're delaying it. I'm not so sure those conspiracy theories hold water. But
what are some of the theories? Oh, for NX?
Yeah, specifically that they're holding it because they're trying to do what they did with Twilight Princess, which was make it probably a game that's on 2 systems.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they did with Twilight Princess. I mean, that was the GameCube swan song, but also the Wii's like coming up to life, kind of. What was already. People liked it already, but you understand what I'm saying.
I understand. That was the hardcore game. That was the one where this is what you've been waiting for.
Yeah, exactly. Just like we had, when GameCube launched and you got, Luigi's Mansion, but then you got Smash Brothers a little bit later, and that was really the killer app for that game, or for that system.
Twilight Princess was a Wii launch title, right?
I
thought I brought that home with Wii Sports.
Yeah, it was. I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And a very limited run on GameCube that fall.
Yeah. And that's what fucked you over.
I was so fucking pissed, dude. I don't know why I just didn't reserve it. The funny thing is that that's like a really like a meaningful moment of change in my life where my opinion on Zelda and that game might be totally different if I had played it on GameCube.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And so I played the inverted fucking version of it where you have to waggle your Wiimote, and that's my impression of that game forever now.
My thing with Twilight Princess is what's weird about it is I don't have a strong opinion about it. I played it with the Wii. I remember Fringe Fingers being the boss. I remember turning into a wolf here and there, and that's it. Like, I beat that game, and like that was so weird to go from, my introduction to Zelda was N64 Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and then we get here, and it's like this game that I have I have so many clear memories of those first 3 games and how amazing they were and what they did differently and what I was blown away. And dungeons where I was stuck or whatever, right? And then you get to Twilight Princess, and it's just a game that I played and was done with.
I think a lot of people felt that way about it.
Yeah.
And
that's sad.
I mean, I remember getting it and printing out FAQs and like because I wanted all the heart pieces of it. I'm like, I really don't have time to dick around with this game. Like, I just want to find everything and complete it. And I was just like, this is so boring. And it was the first Zelda game that I had approached up to that point that I didn't beat or get anywhere near. And I'm like, I can't play this game. I don't want to play this game. I can't. I was almost. I remember being almost offended by it. And the only thing I remember about literally the only thing I remember about it now is that goat scene early on in the game. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I don't know why that resonated with me in such a negative way where I'm like, what is this? Like, why am I what is this game? Who is this Link? What is this world?
Who is this man?
And I got, quite a ways into it, and I was just like, I can't play this. I just had to accept them. And that was really when I started to kind of fall out of love with Nintendo a little bit, where I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is about this company. I don't know what it is about the system. I don't know what it is about this game. I don't like any of it.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to me, especially being such a GameCube apologist, man. Like, oh my God, I was the worst with that shit. So I loved that system.
GameCube's
cool,
man.
Loved the GameCube. I loved it, and it had a great library. Really I really think we make fun of the 3DS's vaunted library of games, but the GameCube really did have an awesome library of games. Exclusives and obviously third-party games, or games that would turn into third-party games like Resident Evil, for instance.
Yeah. Well, he would chainsaw his head off if that game went anywhere else.
So it was just such a change, and Zelda almost is mapped to that change to me.
Interesting. That there's like that clear delineation. That's where things
Twilight
change.
Princess was really the first game where I was like, yeah, this isn't for me anymore. This whole thing isn't for me anymore. Because Galaxy was the one that came out. Because Super Mario Galaxy is just an extraordinary game. That game's a 10 if you want to put a score on. I mean, easily. And that was like really the last time I played a Nintendo game where I'm like, yeah, you guys like still have it. You really still have it. Ever since then, whenever I've dabbled with their games, they just didn't feel right or whatever. I just have lost interest.
Even 3D World? Did you play? We did some Let's Plays back in the day of that.
Yeah, I liked New Super Mario Brothers Wii U or Wii. New Super Mario Brothers Wii, the one that came in the red case.
Yeah,
that was a good game. That came out later. That was like 2009 or 2010, I think. And then I don't like the games that are 2.5D or even have depth of field, and that's why I just don't. It's the same reason why I can't play Little Big Planet. Like, I fucking hate Little Big Planet.
Yeah,
it's just like there's like, but this is even worse because you really are like, I just don't understand. Like, just make your game a 3D game or make your game a 2D game and just be done with it.
Yeah,
I don't understand this like half step shit at all, or like this kind of weirdness to it. That game put a smile. Those games could put a smile on my face, and I enjoyed playing them, but it's not what I'm looking for. Sure. I remember when I got a DS and I played New Super Mario Brothers for the first time. I'm like, wow, this is fucking awesome. Make these all the time. Make this constantly.
Yeah.
And I'll play I'll eat this shit up. And then they did that with the Wii version, and I was like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is awesome. But I don't know.
Okay.
Just turn more into a thing about Nintendo. But yeah, in terms of the Zelda game,
For Zelda Wii U, yeah, I want big sweeping worlds. I want it to be open world. I don't want dumb quests, but I want cool quests, if that makes sense.
they're clever. I mean, they know. I think they know what they're doing. You know, I do believe that they know what they're doing, and I don't think they've ever made a bad Zelda game. I think that they just have made Zelda games that aren't for me, and I don't know who they're for. Some of these games,
Sure.
but I don't think that they're literally bad. So I think even if you got like an open world like facsimile Zelda game of something that looks like it's Skyrim or something, I think it'll still hopefully have those Zelda sensibilities. And if they don't, they're just going to continue to see the Zelda series become more relevant. You know?
Yeah.
Sadly enough.
I also want a lot of gamepad shit. Don't make me blow on it or draw anything or fucking. Let me play with a pro controller. That's the real thing.
They're going to put the inventory on that screen.
Motherfucker.
And I think that makes sense. That's fine with me. You know?
Yeah, whatever.
That controller is
Garbage.
yeah.
Garbage controller.